If you have been following my IL-2 content as well as that of people like the Sheriff or Max, you'll probably have noticed that we often mention that the Germans tend to get their arses kicked in nearly every match on the multiplayer front. By the time I'm making this video, I'm actually going to give you a concrete number here. The Germans have won 17 missions on Wings of Liberty during the whole of June. 17 against the Russian 164. Yet, when you look at the planes shot down, the overall flight time and the number advantage, how can this be? Why and how are the Russians winning even though the Germans have a positive KDR, tend to be more active on the server and have more players? It's a rather peculiar situation at first, but once you break down what's actually going on the multiplayer front, it makes perfect sense, and I'm going to explain it to you and why you should care. In fact, let's start with the latter. You don't really have to care, but maybe you are interested in more exciting matches than, well, the complete slaughters that we have currently going on. Maybe you are a player on Wings of Liberty right now and you've observed the same trend and you're not quite sure what's going on. Maybe you haven't picked Battle of Stalingrad up yet, or you've just recently done so with the Steam Summer Sale and you just like to have a better idea of what it is like to fly online and you want some pointers. Lastly, I'd also like to take this opportunity to contrast what is going on Wings of Liberty with what really happened during World War II on the Russian front. Now, I will start off making an assumption. Getting this wrong is not a major deal, but I don't think I'm actually wrong. My assumption is that most players new to Battle of Stalingrad or Battle of Moscow will start flying Germans. They'll believe that the better machines will help them. They are inspired by real-life early war kill counts, perhaps. In example, everybody wants to be a hard man. And will probably have an overly negative view of the Russian machines. However, as I've mentioned so many times before, even though the Germans have the better machines, the machine itself is not worth anything unless the pilot understands how to use it. But that's a story for another time, and if you want a quick pointer on that, I'll link another video that I've made previously on a similar topic. So why are the Russians winning even though the Germans hold an objective advantage? Let's look at how Wings of Liberty works and how the Russians behave. Every mission on Wings of Liberty starts off with an equal number of ground targets per team, ranging from trains and bridges over to industrial areas or, for example, airfields. All but one have to be destroyed in order to secure victory, and you obviously have to do this before the opposition team destroys yours. At the end of every month, a winner is announced, and it is nothing to write home about, of course, but it serves as a nice little recognition of the team's effort over the complete duration of the month. Now this June, it's been terrible. It's been a complete one-team show. The Russian teams have utilized their, deadly efficiency and their knowledge of the German weakness to their advantage. First off, the Russians tend to focus as a team on a select number of targets. They will communicate and their Peshkas will hit either depots and industrial areas far off, while the IL-2s come in cleaning up enemy airfields, train stations and general ground targets. While they're actually doing that, fighters will often suppress and destroy the AA if the ground attackers don't do it themselves. That means that even though a target might not count as destroyed after concentrated attack, it becomes a relatively easy target later on as there is no self-defense mechanism in place no more. Also, flying close to their bigger buddies, the fighters pick off any Germans that often come in like seagulls to hit the IL-2s and the Peshkas. They make relatively easy targets. Utilizing this tactic, the Russians go from one target to the other and often win matches before the Germans have even cleared off the first one from their list. While you do see a valiant effort from time to time, the Germans are generally sleepwalkers, at least they were this June. Most will always, and without fail, spawn in a fighter and fly circles above their ground targets at an altitude of 5, 6, 7k. While they are virtually secure up there with very little risk except maybe friendly fire, they also become completely useless. First of all, from a game mechanic, the visual range at which you can spot in Battle of Stalingrad sits at 10 kilometers. That means the higher up you are, the shorter your time to ID a target coming in at lower altitude will be. If you fly at 6k and have identified a target down low, you'll have to circle down And by the time you hit it, it's probably already dropped its bombs and is off to bigger and better things. To put it in simple terms, if the enemy holds the initiative, he will not come to you unless he has to in order to win the mission. What he has to do, however, is hit ground targets and cover his ground attackers, and that is exactly what the Russians do. Now, even though this is an oversimplification of what actually happened, this is in simple terms also what happened in the early 1940s, when the Germans had the initiative and the aerial superiority over the Russians had to come to them, which often meant fights at higher altitudes where only one of their planes really performed well. Of course, there were also fights at lower altitudes, but these became more pronounced after the tides turned and the Germans were forced to engage the Russians down low, often facing superior numbers. Now, in Wings of Liberty, the Germans actually have the numbers, but they fly too fractured for that to really matter. Here are some more numbers that should make you think. It's a screenshot of a game that I had in the morning hours with the Germans, holding a clear number advantage but having virtually no ground targets destroyed. The Russians, on the other hand, have 2 to 3 dedicated ground attackers and the rest in supporting fighters. Even numerically disadvantaged, they won this match big time. It doesn't have to be this way, of course. The Germans have good planes to hit grounded targets with. The Ju-87 is an effective machine, as is the Bf-110 or the Ju-88. It's only the Heinkel 111 that really is the odd one out here. But these planes are easily able to sway the tide. Problem is, hardly anyone is flying them. I mean, no wonder. They have little cover, even when you ask in chat, and nearly every mission is a one-way trip. It is something you might consider doing from time to time, but every mission ending in death just because no strong escorting force wants to stick to you, you're not gonna like that feeling, you're not gonna fly it again. Recently, I've been doing a lot more low-altitude fighter sweeps with, for example, the Sheriff and Febraury. And we usually fly at 3 to 4K and consistently run into some good action. We hit fighters, ground attackers, and give each other cover. We aren't always successful, of course. I mean, we get shot down as well. But it's getting better and better with time. But it can be really frustrating because, well, you see, I distinctly remember 2 different moments when I was on Wings of Liberty and I believe I was flying alone at the time. I was in the middle of a dogfight, trying to survive against 2 to 3 Russians. I believe on both occasions I tried to save another player, but I'm not quite sure anymore. Yes, and in one of them it was definitely me trying to defend another player or save another player, while the second time I'm not quite sure. I might have seen like ground attack or something, and well, I got surprised by the escorts. But both times, above me, flying in complete tranquility, were 2 to 3 Germans in impeccable formation, contrailing it, 7K. It doesn't get worse than that. When you have a mission target area and you have up there on their high pedestal German after German making circle after circle, and just down low there is a huge dogfight happening, with the Germans getting picked off one after the other, not being able to defend themselves against multiple Russian fighters and at the same time effectively engaging the ground attackers. It's simply not possible. And trust me, I understand the value of top cover, but top cover at 7K while the fight is at 2K, that is no longer top cover, never mind them actually not even joining the fight. But here's the thing, and I've said it so many times before, everyone can play the game as he'd like to play it. I mean, I prefer to play fighters as well. Nearly all my games this month were Bf-109 F2, and the few I did with the Stuka or the Bf-110 ended in me dying before being able to do anything. I mean, you try to keep off a couple of hungry yaks with a single 7.92mm machine gun, while Hartmann up there is having a nap wondering what all those fireworks under him are supposed to present. At the same time, however, I do want to give a couple of pointers for new players, and I hope that this video has allowed you to understand a little bit of how Wings of Liberty works, and if you do go onto the server, that you're better prepared. Also, I wanted to use this video to address something I've often seen in the German chat on Wings of Liberty. with many people this month perpetuating the same kind of whiny attitude about the Russians somehow having a clear advantage and winning due to this, and that there is a certain bias that prevents the Germans from winning. Well, if you believe that, let me show you some more numbers here and cold hard facts that can't be argued with. This June, of course, the German team failed completely. However, look at May, April, March. Germans won March. Oh, and they won February too. You know, wouldn't it be great to have these kind of months where there are close matches, where real decisions matter, and where teams strive to win against each other? Here's to a better July. Thank you very much for watching. If you've liked this video, give me an iron cross via that like button. If you didn't like this video, well, the dislike button is right there as well. If you'd like to support this channel or know somebody that might benefit from this video, feel free to share it, and as always, have a great day, good ground attacking, and see you in the sky.